What is up, everybody? Good morning and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Marvel Rivals. Today we are going to be checking out yet another Thor spectating video. This time we're going to be looking at Jeremy. I did see someone in the comments the other day mention that this guy was a better Thor than Nevix, which I'd imagine is probably partially true. I think Nevix is a very, very good tank player. Obviously, definitely in the top, probably 50 pretty much the whole season. But this guy is still very good at Thor. This game is going to be a little bit different as far as I'm going to try and be a little bit maybe more critical. I think he does make some kind of interesting mistakes in this game. Obviously, this guy's a very good player. I'm not trying to pick like a pop-off game or something like that because I think watching a little bit more back and forth games are more interesting. But we're going to go through and just see what this guy does, how he plays Thor, and go from there. So trying to just get a little bit of poke with his Awaken off the rip. Going up to high ground, seeing the Captain America over on the right-hand side here, knocking him off. And then looking for the first push of the point. Sees the magic in the back line, tries to go back and help out his team. Once again, popping his Awaken to try and finish people off. Gets a nice little flick on that Black Panther there. I think that might have been a little bit more accidental, but his team should just be taking this first point very, very easily. Just running down the Thor, running down the rest of the team. And his Storm will actually pop off in this game pretty heavily, so we're going to be keeping an eye on her as well. Not needing to ult or anything like that for this first point. So off to a fantastic start, getting the clock reset to 5.5 minutes. Something else that I noticed when I was watching this replay for the first time is that this guy uses his left shift significantly more than most Thors do. He'll go for those kind of weird aerial kidnaps, as you saw him do just there. But definitely using his Awaken less than I probably would on Thor. So I don't know if that's the thing that you want to be doing or you don't want to be doing. It really just depends on the situation. But he is sitting on full Thor force here. And he's just using his melee attacks. And I'm not seeing... He could be doing a ton more damage during that situation. So I think being mindful of when you're overcapped on Thor force. Like he has his E up here. He could be at 3 Thor force. Still sitting on his E. Could be sitting on his Awaken, using his left shift, and then just ulting. He does end up killing the Adam Warlock here, but once again, still sitting at 3 Thor Force, finally using an Awaken to actually spend that, and he's actually taken out because he's a little bit too far up. So I think part of being good on Thor is just being economical with that, so making sure that you're spending your Thor Force, using it appropriately, and using it to do a ton of damage. Definitely something that was the first thing that I noticed in this replay specifically. And again, this is not an indicator of necessarily his overall skill or anything like that. I'm not trying to start anything, but just trying to be a little bit more critical in this specific setting. The enemy team does blow Thor ult, Bucky ult, and Adam Warlock ult, so his team is just going to back up a little bit. They have plenty of time on the clock, so they just need to fully reset. He gets taken pretty low there, taken out of position, and has to back up. Dropping into line of sight of his healers so that he can get a little bit of healing there. Getting a nice left shift, pushing this Thor back towards his team, but unfortunately is taken out by just a little bit too much damage. His Invisible Woman does pop her ult. Unfortunately, Cap and Thor are both dead, so they're not going to be able to get a crazy good push off of this, and the ult is a little bit too far back. But his Psylocke and Storm both pop their ults and go absolutely crazy. So they get a nice pick on the enemy Storm and the Adam Warlock. Going to be down a healer. Jeremy immediately going up to high ground, getting this Captain America off of it. Getting a nice pick on it, using his auto attacks. I think, again, we're using too many auto attacks, not enough ability usage on Thor. But, again, this guy is a very good player, too. I was watching a couple of his YouTube videos this morning, and you do learn a good amount on Thor, just as far as things to keep in mind, things to think about as you're playing Thor. His character's super strong, especially now. He feels incredibly, incredibly strong. So if you haven't tried Thor at all and you're a tank player or something like that, you like Cap, this guy might be for you. Give it a go. They get a nice clean ace here. They just have to blow Cloak and Dagger ult to get it, and they're going to be getting that second point just over 4 minutes on the clock as they get that point to the objective. And thank you again for everyone that has been commenting what you guys want to see next, everyone that's engaging there. I appreciate it so, so much. And don't forget to leave a like on the video if you liked it, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. Getting a little bit of awaken damage in here, disrupting the Captain America a little bit before he ults. Unfortunately, he's going to be able to keep his team pretty healthy during this whole situation. Jeremy's Captain America returns ult as well. Left shifting off to the side here. Don't know why we're left shifting so much here. But again, a little bit overcapped on Thor Force. Tries to get some good follow-up damage on this Thor. Unfortunately, he gets healed up. His Psylocke goes for an ult on pretty much 5 people. Mantis ult is able to counter it on that end. Cloak and Dagger on the enemy team does ult as well, so they're not going to be able to get anything out here. Psylocke gets a nice return kill on the Captain America, and his Storm is going to ult, try and push back, knowing that they don't have any support ults on the enemy team. Ends up taking out the Thor, and they get a follow-up kill on the Cloak and Dagger. Jeremy walking forward, using his melee attacks to take out this Winter Soldier, and the Cap is able to finish off the Mantis. So they get a nice delayed ace there, a little bit of a stagger on the enemy team, and just going to push up further, using F to get a little bit more poke on the enemy team. Charging up left shift, opting not to use it. Going up towards high ground, once again knocking someone off of high ground. Taking Mantis a little bit low and finishing her off with ult. Dashing back to help his team get this Thor off point, so they can get a little bit more distance on this payload as his Cloak and Dagger ults. Trying to push the enemy back. They get a nice follow-up kill on the Captain America. F damage and Storm help finish off the Cloak and Dagger, and they have a really nice stagger again on the enemy team. 2 seconds on the Cap, 5 seconds, 4 seconds on the Cloak and Dagger or so. The enemy Storm does get an ult on point, but they just kind of focus her down, and Invisible Woman ult is able to keep them pretty safe there. Psylocke ults for insurance for anyone coming back, and they get the nice 3-0 win on the round. So, not a bad first round. I don't think there was anything insane happening there. I think there was a little bit of overcapping on Thor Force, but did a good job of keeping the flanks clear, getting on high ground, knocking important targets off of that, and playing a style of play that is more front to back as opposed to that first Nevix gameplay that we all watched, where he was a little bit more flank heavy, going for picks, pressuring the back line a little bit more. So I do think he could also be playing just a little bit further up in some of these fights. He is dropping back quite a bit, and it leaves his back line pretty open to getting dove here. Trying to dash around and disrupt this Thor, but I think what his team needs is a little bit more added pressure. Although they do lose a couple people early there. So the enemy team is going to do pretty much what his team did that first round and take this first point without a whole lot of issue. No ults being expended to keep that point either. Unfortunately, he does get sent back to Narnia over here. Going to have a really, really long run back to the point. Thankfully, has his left shift to get him back there just a little bit quicker. And rejoining the fight there. Seeing the Captain America on the backline, uses his left shift to disrupt, and his team is able to follow up damage after that. Getting damage amped like that, a little bit scary, but his Psylocke does blow ult, is able to take out one. His team is able to follow up and finish off the kills as she takes some people low. So they get the enemy off the point. They're going to have a 5-minute hold on their hands, though, so it's going to be a little bit difficult, but as we know by the start of this video, and just the fact that I'm recording this at all, it ends okay. It'll be alright. Using his left shift to poke here, his Psylocke just gets absolutely murked. Cap goes on a tear, also takes out his Thor. His team is without a whole lot of damage at this point, so they should just be backing up. They have already lost 2 DPS. Cloak and Dagger still expends ult, though, just to try and stall out the point. I think she probably could have just saved this. They just give up this little hallway right here and go from there. But his Captain America also commits ult, so at this point they are fully committed. I don't think I would have also blown Thor ult there because Captain America had already ulted. So there's no need. He's not going to kill anybody with it. Thor ult just simply doesn't do that much damage unless nobody's getting healed or something like that. So trade a lot of ults there. Cap, yeah. Cap, Invisible Woman, Thor, Cloak and Dagger. Yeah, Bucky, enemy Storm, enemy Thor, enemy Cap. Yeah, so tons of ults going back and forth there. And the enemy is able to round that corner and near this second checkpoint. Going to try and get this Bucky off high ground. Ends up getting pulled in. I think he probably could have actually stayed in there and just used his Awaken instead of going for these melee attacks on the Storm here. But the Adam Warlock res comes out from the enemy team, so he's going to be able to get a couple members of his team back up. Thankfully, they take out the Storm. Psylocke on his team is able to go a little bit crazy, helping to take out the Adam Warlock. Some follow-up damage lands, and they're able to kill the enemy Thor. And using the left shift to run back and around, getting back to his healers, so he can get topped up and help his team finish off this Captain America. They get a nice delayed ace on the enemy team and push them off this point. Just under 3 minutes left on the clock. Still just wailing on the air. And if you see why this guy's like accuracy is super low too, if you're looking at it, it's like 21% right now. It's because he's meleeing the air too, by the way. So don't don't confuse that for just actually missing everything. So his Storm ults here. The Captain America and enemy Storm ult to counter. His Invisible Woman pops ult to try and keep her team alive a little bit. Running down this Thor in the backline here. Gets some really good follow-up damage with his Awaken. They're able to follow up, get the KO on the enemy Storm, and not lose any members of their team. And just going to back up around this corner, playing a little bit more back. But as you can see, again, he's really, really far back. He's still behind his backliners, which I think is maybe not so great. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but gets a really nice left shift in the air on that Storm after taking her a little bit low. Thinks about going in, but backs up to where Cloak and Dagger is ulting. And just going to poke from a distance. They have a ton of space between the enemy and the cart, so they should just be able to soak this up. I think here, I would imagine he's pinging his team to back up because he is so far back, so far behind his backliners. Probably know that some kind of push is coming, and he's just encouraging them to back up. Unfortunately, 2 of them are taken out. 3 of them are taken out. His Storm ults kind of for no reason. The fight is already lost. She does force the Invisible Woman ult on the enemy team, so Invisible Woman is going to be able to keep her team alive. They actually do blow Cloak and Dagger ult and Invisible Woman ult just for Storm, so it might have been worth it, but I think had she saved that for a better occasion, it might have been a little bit better. Once again, we need to be spending Thor Force so that we're getting shielding, but only using his left shift. Able to still get the Storm here, and kills being traded back and forth. We're looking at like a 3v3, 3v2. His Cap is being an absolute live lord on point. Just under 30 seconds left on the clock, 5 meters to go. But they cannot give up because 15 seconds is a lot of time. A lot of things can happen. They don't have any defensive ults or offensive ults. Well, Captain America ult is coming up, but they will have to contend with Storm ult without any sort of defensive ults to mitigate that. Darkchild is popped from the enemy magic. Captain America ult also comes out from the enemy team, so they're going to get a damage boosted, shielding, pretty much immortal magic. Luckily, his Invisible Woman gets her ult right in time, but they do overlap support ults here. So they're going to have big survivability for that one little instant, but they're not going to be staggering those, so that is going to be a little bit of a problem. Enemy Cloak and Dagger does ult, so they're not going to be able to get any KOs on the enemy team during this time. Gets a nice couple of melee attacks on the Storm, and then gets solo ulted by this Doctor Strange, making sure that he gets off point. The enemy Storm ults in there, but the Invisible Woman still has ult from that fight. Able to keep her team alive, and the other team gets that checkpoint. A minute 30 for this last stretch is not very much time, though, so I would still be feeling pretty good, but his team is staggering pretty badly here. it's in those situations where I think that might have been a support gap for the most part, or just the overlap of ults was very, very bad there. Pretty game changing, but I do think that he could have done a little bit more damage with Awakening. In situations like that, you're hitting so many targets with your Awaken and your E and refreshing so much Thor Force that he could be doing a ton of damage, ton more damage in those fights, getting a lot more pressure out there. His Psylocke gets a nice double kill, finishes up one more as the cap goes in with her. Should be able to fend the enemy off of this push that they've got going. Get a nice stagger on the magic there, putting 8 seconds on her death timer as people are just coming up. And looking at about 30 seconds left on the clock, Doctor Strange and the enemy team does not have portals, so he used it on last point, so they should be okay there. And they have plenty of tools on both sides to make this a very chaotic final fight. Cloak and Dagger starts things off by ulting over the point. His Invisible Woman counters with her ult to make sure everyone stays nice and safe. Probably would have saved Invisible Woman ult until a big damage cooldown actually comes out. Cloak and Dagger ult isn't really... It's definitely healable, so... But the enemy Captain America ults. He gets a nice cheeky kill on the Cloak and Dagger. The enemy team lose their Strange and Magic as well, thanks to the Storm ult, Cloak and Dagger ult, and Cap ult. Storm for the enemy team does ult, but it's a little bit too late, and they get the win with a score of 3-2. So, definitely a different style of Thor. He's using his left shift and his auto attacks a lot more than I've seen most other Thors use those. I think it would be a little bit better if he used his F more often. His Awaken just does so much more damage. I think it does like 700 damage over the course of the time, so if I've mentioned that before, I'm sorry, but it's a ton of damage. I mean, you can pretty much take out a Doctor Strange shield all by yourself. So, as you can see, he does go 48, so very, very respectable score. Does a good amount of damage. I think he probably could have done closer to 30k if he'd been using his Awaken instead of his other stuff, but still get the dub. Still get the dub in a Celestial lobby, and this guy is a very good player still. So, I will link his YouTube channel in the description below. Like the video if you liked it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.